All right, we are recording. Hello, my name is Hillary Ade, and I am a children's librarian at the Daniel Boone Regional Library. And tonight we have Catherine Miller, who is here to present for us. She is a program coordinator, the program coordinator for the Triple P program, The Power of Positive Parenting, which is a multi-level system of family intervention designed to reduce behavioral and emotional problems. That is a mouthful. That's a lot to do. And that is part of the Boone County Early Childhood Coalition. This evening, Catherine will talk to us about how routines can help your family work better, learn how and why, the hows and whys of setting, making, and keeping schedules.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We know during the summer is a huge transition, especially in August. People are trying to do their, last hurrahs before, school starts. And so just excited that people will be able to check in with us later about this. So schedules, routines, why are they important? Well, believe it or not, children and adults really do thrive on schedules. It's nice to know what's coming next. It's great to know an order of things and being able to anticipate what we're going to do next. And so even our teens like predictability. And so tonight we're going to kind of go through what it's like to set up some routines, the importance of routines, and how to kind of make them function in your life. So we'll kind of start with the littles, and then we'll kind of rotate up and then talk about it also in a family atmosphere. So we often hear, when you have a baby, get them on a sleep schedule, get them on a feeding schedule, because it's going to make your life easier. So as a twin mom, I will definitely say yes, right? I woke one child up to eat when the other child did because I couldn't manage two different schedules and function as a mom, right? A new mom. And so I guess I wasn't new. I had an older one, but I'll call myself a recycled mom because, my oldest was 7 and then I was starting again with twins. So that's completely like a new mom. But, I had to find a routine. I had to find a rhythm. I had to find what was going to work best for me. And so what I ended up doing was, what people had said, you set a routine. And so routines help us to have predictability, but also to anticipate what's going next. When you think about it with our littles, when they're little, they don't know what a routine is, right? We're, as parents, anticipating their needs. So, you learn that's a wet cry, they need a diaper change. Oh, that sounds like a hungry cry, I need to feed them. So we're learning our children, and that doesn't change. From our littles to our bigs and to our teens, learning your children doesn't change because you're still learning to anticipate their needs and meet their needs. So so we talked about kind of that baby structure. If you ever do need to work on sleep scheduling, though, that's something I can help out with. And we'll talk about later how you can reach me, or Hillary can put it in the chat for you. But that is something that we can work on setting up sleep routines. I actually really enjoy that. So feel free to reach out for that. So as we're working on learning our babies and the cries and they make, we're starting routines, right? And then we move into that toddler stage, right? We're getting that relief. Kids are starting to sleep all night, maybe not, but they're sleeping for longer periods. And so if you're a working parent, maybe you needed to set up a schedule and a routine that was going to work with you by yourself, or maybe you and a partner, on who was going to feed, who was going to diaper, how would we get a routine situated so that both people can get adequate amount of sleep. Or if you were a single parent, how could you function enough to get enough sleep? And so we kind of, set up that type of routine. And maybe it's something you just keep in your head. If you're doing it by yourself, that's quite easy. But if not, routines need to be written down so that everybody who has the hand in the routine can understand their part in it. When we get to those toddler stages, we're really looking to set up routines to keep them, we'll say, in alignment, right? Because we know that to have all the working parts together, we have to make sure that we have things in control. And so I'll give you an example of a mom that met with me. Her kid was tantruming about 5 to 7 times a day. You hear that and you think, oh, I really can't handle that. Well, one of the first things when you come to meet with me is we talk about what the problem is, and you give me a snapshot of what it looks like. So this mom said their lives were, she had older kids. She had kids that were in middle school. She had kids, she had middle school kids. She had an elementary kid, and then she had a baby who was about 10 months old. And so they got up about 6:30 in the morning because the middle schoolers had to be at school by 7:20. And so they got up about 6:30. They got dressed, they ate, she got everybody herded to the car, and they were in the car by 7:05 at the latest. So mom could reach the destination and drop the older kids off. They made it a habit of driving down the street. They played in a little park for a little bit so that she could then drop the elementary school kid off, because he couldn't be dropped off till 8 something. And so they had like a 30-minute window, but not enough time that it was worth going home. In the winter, she said, they would just kind of drive around or just kind of hang out, maybe have a book on tape in the car, something that they could park and listen to. But during the nice weather, they like to get out and kind of expend some energy. So she dropped the second child off. She had the second drop off. And then she went about her day. She was already out. Her and the baby were still there. So she often went to get groceries, go to the bank, do all the errands that she needed to do. And they'd get home in time for them to do lunch. She'd have fixed lunch for her and the baby. She'd put the baby down around noon, but she had to make sure the baby was up in time to start the pickup, right? Because they got out of school at, I think she said, I can't remember what it was, but it was enough that the baby didn't have a whole long nap. And if the baby wanted to sleep longer, they couldn't, because they had to be back in the car for pickup. And so as this progressed, she was finding that when they would go to run errands, the baby really struggled, often would have tantrums, fall out. She was seeing in the evenings, the baby was really not doing well at dinner, would often throw food, would cry, hit, fight with the other kids, and she just couldn't figure out what was going on. And as we talked through her routine, we found that, the baby didn't get its, second nap. So a lot of times kids at that 10 month before 1 take 2 naps a day. So this baby was missing its 10:30 nap. And by the time they got home, they were really too tired to eat for lunch. They didn't eat well, and then they didn't get a full nap. And so then she was throwing them in the car. We're picking up all the kids. We're dropping kids off, at other places if they had after school activities. There's just a lot of hustle and bustle. And then they get home, and, they would struggle with being able to get dinner and get all baths and get everything done before it was time to put this kiddo to bed. And so this kiddo sometimes wouldn't get in bed until 8 o'clock at 10 months old, after we didn't get a first nap and we really didn't get a full nap. And so we were able to talk through the fact that because of this routine, the tantrums were really because mom didn't have a schedule or predictability for this kiddo. So once we talked through it and mom recognized it, she was able to reset some things. So this child was getting good sleep, got those 2 naps in, was able to get a full lunch. And she saw the tantrums just instantly reduce themselves on their own, because she had been able to change her schedule and give her child enough sleep and be able to eat. And so the child wasn't overtired and acting out. So that's just an example of how important routines are. And sometimes as adults, we forget the things that our kids need, right? Was she a bad mom? Absolutely not. She was trying to get things done that needed for the house, running errands, getting groceries, doing the things that she needed to do in the day. But she just wasn't mindful that the baby needed a second nap. How often do we think the baby can just nap while we're doing things? But sometimes that isn't possible, because we're hustling and bustling them around and doing things so they don't get a good nap in. Even if they shut their eyes for the driving time, right? You pop them in the cart, you go to the grocery store, there's all kind of beeping and noise and stuff. So that's not good sleep. They may be popping their eyes open, looking around, falling back asleep, but they're not getting good sleep. So let's kind of talk about our toddlers. Kind of the same things, right? So the beginning toddler stage to the end of the toddler stage, we see kids dropping out one of those naps. And so in the beginning stages of dropping that nap, we may see them struggling. when we're getting ready to go to kindergarten, right? So we are now going into the big kid stage. They may not get a nap. So, as we're getting ready to get ready for school, and we have kids who are used to taking a nap, going into kindergarten and not taking a nap, we may see that they will struggle with maybe evening behavior, maybe falling asleep before it's time for them to go to bed, before they've had their bath. Sometimes they're trying to come home and take a mini nap, and you're thinking, oh no mini naps, because I want to make sure you're going to bed tonight. But their bodies are adjusting and they're tired. And so helping kids to adjust and giving a little grace as they adjust is often helpful. And we really saw during the pandemic that schedules were hard because no one was going anywhere. And so we saw kids sleeping in, we saw kids not taking naps, taking longer naps, maybe not going to bed on time. And so we saw a lot of acting out behaviors because there wasn't certain schedules and routines, because who needed them, right? If you're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything. Many people don't think we need a routine. But in fact, kids thrive and do better when we still keep structure and routines. Their bodies are used to that. Have you ever worked a shift and then you change, right? So let's say you used to work a shift where it was, you had to be at work at 6 a.m. So you got up at 5, you were at the house by 5:30, you worked 6 to 2, you came home, you did errands, but you were ready to go to bed by 9 o'clock. And then, you've done this for 2 years maybe, and you switch to a 9 to 5 job, or even 11 to 7 job. Well, lo and behold, at 5 o'clock, your body's like, hello, it's time to be up and going, because that's what it was used to. Our kids are kind of the same. And so once we get used to a sleep cycle, it's hard to adjust it, right? So, as parents, we often appreciate on the weekends if our children would sleep in. But of course, at, 5:30, 6:30 a.m., they're like, hello, would you like to play? What are we doing for the day? Give me attention. Let's do something. And you think, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be great if you would do this through the week where I don't have to drag you out of bed? But often on the weekends, we're not as busy as we are through the weekdays. Now, not all families, but surprisingly, people are busier through the weekdays than they are on the weekend, because our lives are so many hours of the day are taken from being at work or school or daycare or something like that. And so you have to do things in between. A lot of kids play sports, or they're in dance, or they're in some form of an activity that takes up evening time. You have dinner, you have baths, you have homework during the school year. And so we're just emotionally busy too. And that can be draining. And so on the weekend, people are looking forward to sleeping in, maybe planning less activities. But the kids are still used to the going motion. So it's hard to get them to reset and readjust themselves. And so being able to help parents understand that will help them to have a little more grace in their lives, and be able to accept some of the challenges, and then take things on themselves and make those adjustments so that they can help their family maybe be a little more successful, not have as many tantrums or meltdowns or things like that. Also during the pandemic, excuse me, I'm going to scoot my chair up a little bit there. Sorry. Also during the pandemic, we saw parenting, what I would say was 24-hour parenting. So a lot of times people don't think about it, but in a normal everyday life, we parent on the top and the bottom. So what does that mean? We get kids up, we get them fed, clothes on, teeth brushed, hair comb, whatever your morning routine looks like, to go somewhere. School, daycare, whatever it is. And many people, start their second set of life by going to work, school, whatever it is. And then you pick up your kid and you parent on the bottom, right? So we're picking them up, we're getting dinner, baths, homework, those kind of things. But there's a good chunk of 8 to 10 hours where we're not parenting, that someone else is kind of in essence taking our place, but and teaching them, setting rules and regulations for them to follow for 8 to 10 hours a day. When the pandemic came, we were all home together. And, stressful as that was for many people, it also brought up the fact that, what are we supposed to do, right? Sit around and look at each other all day. We start thinking, we've heard not too much screen time. People hadn't planned, so maybe they didn't have workbooks available or didn't have resources for that. So what do you do with your kids all day? And so, parenting became even harder. because we were trying to figure it out as we went along. And that's where those routines and schedules could come into play. And so starting to look at the day as, what are we doing in the morning, and working out our morning? What time are we going to plan lunch? Kids were used to eating lunch somewhere between 11 and 1. If you're in high school, sadly, maybe even 10:30. But there was a routine for lunch. A lot of times at home, it was, I don't know, whatever time somebody's hungry, go fix yourself something. And so we didn't quite have those balances. So what happened is some people were ready for dinner at 5. Other people weren't ready for dinner till 6. Some people didn't want anything till 7 if they didn't eat till 3. And so we became disjointed as family units, perhaps, because we didn't have schedules and routines. And it was kind of like a free-for-all when people ate. Now, if you had kids who could make things for themselves, that was even more so the case, because they ate when they were hungry, and you didn't have to stop to fix them anything. So we saw a lot of, we'll call it children in a way parenting themselves, because parents had to work, right? So they were like, find something to do to occupy yourself while I have to work, right? And that was kind of a struggle, because again, it was like, make yourself useful, find something to do, occupy yourself. Here's some coloring pages. Here's this, because I have to work. And so we found that maybe if there was some structure in play, right? We had at this time, we worked on math worksheets. Maybe we made them up ourselves on a piece of paper, right? We worked on, I helped a parent through the phone. She made a little fill the dots in worksheet. She did her own so the kid could trace it and make a picture, because there wasn't, the availability of resources for her. So we kind of made up our own worksheets for her to do with her child. We did that with trace with numbers and different things. So her child had some activities to do. But what she found is that child needed to be busy, but structurally busy. When we said, go play, they weren't used to having free play. So they were like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Can I have my tablet? Sure, but only for an hour. Okay, an hour is up. Now what? And the mom's like, find something to do. And the kid's like, I don't know what to do. And so there was this volley of, can I watch TV? And the parent, who still had to work, was like, sure, watch some TV, but only for an hour, because I'm trying to be a good parent and regulate screen time. So now we're 2 hours in, the kid's back, and they're like, and now what? And so I think it became something for parents to think about, is that, kids today may not understand free play because they don't always get it. Kids' lives are oftentimes structured and regulated. And when that's taken away, it causes some confusion and congestion in kids, because I don't know what to do. I've never had the ability to free play. My life has been planned out. And so, that created some anxiety amongst children, amongst parents. And so I really worked with parents on bringing some normalcy back. Yes, letting kids get some free play in, but bringing that normalcy back of, these are the things we need to do to stay structured, for myself, if you're a parent who was working, or for my child who was still craving that type of structure that they were used to going to school or daycare or even homeschooling, right? Kids like and thrive in structure. So that's just kind of an idea of pandemic parenting, and what was looking for structure and routines and things like that. So as we move into, we'll call it maybe a semi-normal year, right? Right now, it looks like everybody's going to school. What's that going to be like? We've been home for so long, maybe we haven't had routines, and we're trying to put new things in play. Or even we've had a lax summer. We didn't have a lot of structure. And now a week into school, we're trying to put some structure in place, and maybe kids are revolting because they're like, I don't want to go to bed yet. I mean, it's, we're putting people at 7:30 to bed because that's what works. And they're like, excuse me, the sun is still up and I hear people outside. I'm not ready to go to bed. Nobody's ready to go to bed. And so maybe you're struggling with getting to bed and getting a bedtime routine down. Again, if that's something you're struggling with, we could set up a one-on-one and I can work on that with you. But we're looking at kids and really struggling with getting to bed because of that. And so, school's going to start next year. next week for many people. And we're going to have to get the kids up and get going. So what are we going to do? So starting with a routine, and I encourage you to write them down, to sit down with your kid and have what I call family meetings, right? When we're going to discuss change, the people who are involved in the change want it should be and want to often be part of the change. So talking about what time are we going to go to bed, right? If you have an awake clock or a clock that you can set, that's helpful. Littles don't really understand time, but they can understand color. So a lot of times we have a sleep or an awake clock people can work with. But we talk about what time we're going to go to bed, what's it going to look like. So we may have a bedtime routine that we follow. We may have a morning routine that we follow, but we need to get those routines back in place and really be practicing them because it's really hard to make an instant change. So, school may start on Tuesday for some, Thursday for our kindergartners. If you live here in Columbia, I'm not sure about our surrounding areas of what day they're going back. But if you start the day before or the day of, you may really struggle and have a grouchy child. And then how are you going to respond to that grouchy child who's not ready to be awake, who's really struggling? So it's great if you can start practicing that routine down and getting your schedule down, even for your own sake, right? I don't know how many people in the first 2 weeks are going to hear, I missed the bus, if that was something they had because we weren't ready. And we all know bus can come early, it can come late. So, discussing that and making sure we're at the bus stop. Do we know where the bus stop is? How long are we going to wait? Are you waiting with them? Some of those things that are coming up, really having discussions about it and making sure that your child is ready for that. So morning routines, I often like to really kind of start the night before because preparing yourself is helpful. So one of the biggest struggles we see, even with our teens is, or maybe it's even you, what am I going to wear today, right? So when we talk about our littles, we often like to give them two choices. So the night before, you can have them pick two things that they're going to wear. And so in the morning, we're not inundated with all the choices and just staring at the closet and thinking, oh, what might work and what not. So we put the night before, we have our kiddos pick out two outfits for themselves. So the next morning, the option is, do you want A or do you want B? Because they've already decided between the two. So then the next morning when we wake up, we already know what we're going to do. So we have two outfits set out. We may have some underwear and some socks to put on, and we can help our kid get ready in a timely fashion and maybe avoid a potential meltdown over clothes. Happens all the time. We don't know what we want to wear. We can't get dressed fast enough. I don't know where my socks are. I'm tired. I don't want to open the drawer and pick out a pair of underwear. So if we have everything ready for them, it can cut down on the tantrum in the morning. It can also cut down on perhaps making you late. So then we get up. So we've gotten up, we've gotten dressed, and we head, and maybe we're combing our hair. Some people brush teeth before. As soon as they wake up. Some people brush teeth after breakfast if you're doing breakfast at home. Some people they're in such a rush that they got to just get out the house and they pay for their kids to eat breakfast at school. A lot of times childcare provides breakfast. So it's kind of like whatever meets your schedule or what you have planned in terms of getting out of the house. So that's kind of maybe what a morning routine looks like, but you're planning it ahead of time so that you can be successful. And as parents, I also suggest making sure that you stay on track, right? So maybe you're not putting out two outfits in the morning, but maybe you are. But also, making sure you're on schedule. You're not staying in bed and checking your Facebook and watching a TikTok and running through Instagram. And so that you're running behind and then you make the whole house feel rushed and frazzled because you're behind. So keeping yourself on track and on a schedule is often helpful in keeping the household regulated. One of the things that I feel helpful for me is making a dinner routine, a dinner schedule. So on Sunday nights, so on Sundays for me, I like to plan what we're having for the week. But if you take a step back, maybe you do it on Saturday so you can grocery shop for it. I tend to plan in the morning and grocery shop in the afternoon, and that's just my day. But whatever works for you. But what does dinner look like for the week, right? a lot of times being able to plan dinner with the routines of your life is often helpful. So if you know on Wednesday somebody has dance and football and different things, being able to have maybe a crock pot meal that's ready for you when you guys get home to eat so that you're not taking the time to cook, or maybe that sandwich night so there's something quick and being able to. One of the pitfalls that we definitely see is when you don't have a plan, you make a plan and, maybe your plan is, all right, it's drive-through time. And if that ends up being your plan several times a week, you may look at your budget and say, what happened? And then you look and it was like, oh, I didn't know what to fix for dinner. So drive-through it was, and now we've eaten out 6 times and that wasn't in our budget. And now we're over budget because of poor planning, which comes back to scheduling. So getting into scheduling and routines helps us also in a financial aspect. It can help us to be prepared for what's for dinner and what's coming next, and having, meals that match our timelines. And then, finding some tips maybe that can help you throughout the school year. One of the things I always talk to my parents about, I love to do cook up ground chicken or ground hamburger, turkey, whatever you like, in 1 pound bags. They're seasoned, cooked, ready to go. So you can make a meal quicker. So if it's throwing some in spaghetti, if it's taco night, if it's whatever, that portion's already done for you. And that's a way to help, cut down on time that you might not have if you have other activities to go through. So just a quick tip that always worked well for me. I was always coming and going with, I have boy-girl twins, so their activities were not always the same. And I had an older one. And so, being the van chauffeur, I often felt like Danica Patrick. I was like, yeah, get out, it's your turn next, move, where are we going? And so already having dinner planned was one less havoc that I had to figure out in a world that already felt crazy from zipping and driving and dropping and going. So maybe that's a tip that's helpful for you. If it is, great. I'm glad. If you like the chaos, keep it if it works best for you. By no means am I telling you to change your life, but hopefully we can add something in there that might make things a little bit easier. Another thing with routines is you can have your children be a part of it. So when we're talking about what our routine looks like for the week, I like Sunday family meetings as well. So everybody comes together, we sit down and we talk about what our week looks like. Who has dance, who has football, who has cheer, who has whatever the case may be, and writing that down on the family calendar for the week so we know where people are going and what people are doing for the week, and we can plan accordingly. Sometimes, depending on the age of your children, they don't always let you know what's going on ahead of time if there's a schedule change. Maybe you missed the email. And so your kid's like, and tomorrow we have pictures and we have to be there an hour early. You're like, what? No, that doesn't work. Right. So you have to revamp the schedule. But if there was a schedule to revamp, that's much easier than having to revamp flying by the seat of your pants. I guess if you're really good at it, maybe it's not so much of a struggle. But if you're not, that can really create a lot of anxiety and havoc in your life. So again, if you have a routine and you just have to alter the routine, that makes it a little bit easier for you. Routines are also helpful with our tweens and teens. They have a lot going on, a lot of them involved in extracurricular activities with school and things like that. So keeping a schedule and knowing, again, where they need to be dropped off or where they're going to be, what they need for the day, making sure that they're aware of their own needs and helping them to keep track of it is helpful. So if they see you with a routine and schedule, oftentimes they can understand building one for themselves. So if they're in a bunch of sports and activities, you may want to talk to them about, when are you going to do your homework? Or if you have study hall at school, are you utilizing your study hall to get the most work done? Maybe it's, hey, it looks like our grades aren't really working well, and it looks like we're not doing so well in our grades. So maybe we need to cut back on an activity so that you have more time to devote to your schoolwork, right? But when you have a schedule, you can understand maybe where there's time to add something, maybe where you're not utilizing your time the best, right? So if you pick up a kid and you usually drop them off at home, but they maybe struggle with doing homework at home, maybe you say, hey, grab your bag while brother has practice. I can help you with your math And we can do it while they're at practice. So instead of that child maybe being at home and not doing their work, now they're with you and you plan time to go through their activity. But you might not have realized that until you sat down to look at your routines and your schedules. So those are a few of the ways that, we can really work through routines and schedules and the things that we have going on for ourselves. What other kind of routines and schedules and what do those things look like? So the most common routines that we have, again, are those morning routines that we kind of talked through. And then bedtime routines is a big one that we have. And so we'll talk about our littles first. Our younger kids often thrive on being able to check mark or put a sticker by what their routine looks like. And so I encourage parents to build a routine for their children at night, especially if you have kiddos when you put them to bed that ask for drinks and water and I need to go potty again, I need to get up. A way to kind of avoid that is a checklist. So we look at what's bedtime look like. So maybe we have bath on there. Now that may or may not be every night. Sometimes in the summer it is because they're outside and they're super sweaty. And some people during the winter choose to not give baths. Maybe it causes dry skin, but whatever the case, you can put bath on there. And if it's bath night, you check it off. If it's not bath night, we just say, oh, it's not bath night. And we don't mark that. But then we have pajamas and brushing our teeth. Maybe if your child takes a medicine or there's something else that you need to do before bed, that's on the schedule. And then we have before we get in bed, what do we have? Do we have books? Do we have silly songs? What is that routine like? And so, helping your child to be able to pick, right? So having them say, hey, pick out 2 books and we'll be able to read those. Maybe you say, hey, we're not going to do books and songs. So you can pick out 1 book and we'll do 1 silly song. But having your child be a part of that and making choices really helps them to feel in control. And so we set out and do all of our bedtime routine. We often write on there, we get a drink. If you have a bedtime snack, not everybody does that, but we put all those things on there before brushing teeth, right? That's probably at the end. And then we do our books and songs and then we get in bed and we tuck in and we're, lights out and we're done. So that makes things easier when they call out, I need a drink, right? You can respond with, oh, I think that's already on our list and we did it. And a lot of times they'll accept it. They're like, oh, you're right. I need to go potty. Oh, I think we went potty right before we got in bed. Now, if you're potty training, that's a totally different thing, right? We're not going to be like, work it out. We'll try to accommodate. But there's a fine line between, I know they might have to go again and we're stalling. And so potty training is a little different in that. But if we're fully potty trained, we've gone very recently, we can say, oh, we already went. I'll see you in the morning. I can't wait for you to get a good night's sleep. Maybe talk about what morning looks like if they really enjoy cereal or pancakes or granola bars or whatever you have. I know we can't wait to get up in the morning and get our favorite blueberry granola bar. And they're like, oh yeah, it's time to me to go to sleep so I can get one. But really exciting them about what the morning is going to be like so they can go ahead and get their sleep in. If you're really struggling with a bedtime routine or your kid's staying in bed, that's something, again, that I can do a one-on-one with you. And as an aside, because I don't think I mentioned it, Boone County, as long as you're a resident of Boone County, my services for you are free. And actually, I can only see you if you're in Boone County. But the services are free regardless of your income. There's no guidelines. The guideline only is you living in Boone County. There's no financial guidelines. And so then you can receive these one-on-ones with me where we work through things specifically for your child. In these kind of seminars, these things that we're doing right here for the library, or if you'd like one for like maybe your church group or a mom's group you have, I'll be happy to come do one of those for you for free as well. But looking at, these routines and things like that, I can help you. I'm happy to help you. Triple P is usually about a 4-week process. So the first time you come, we talk about what the problem is and we make a plan of change. And I send you out to do that plan of change. And then you come back to me and you tell me things that worked well, maybe things that didn't work so well, and we go out with a new plan of change. Hopefully we've tweaked it enough that you tell me the next week things were great and I'm excited for you. And we just kind of hang out to see one more week, are things still going to be great? If we need to do a few more tweakings, we keep having sessions until things have worked itself out. But usually 4 to 6 weeks is about the longevity of a session with me, because we're just working on behavior change. And once that behavior is changed and you feel good about it, I don't keep you anymore. You're good to go. And if you need me again, you're welcome to come back. And believe me, we have repeat parents that come back. We have parents that just check in with me and say, hey, I want to run an idea by you. Hey, we're having a little sleep deprivement. What other things can I do? What's happening? And I'll be happy to answer questions for you and check in with you. So sorry, that was an aside, but I don't think I told you that. I apologize. You do so many of them that you forget your routine, because I didn't do it. So I apologize. But that's how you can get into services with us. Okay, so back to that routine. So morning routines, bedtime routines. And then, the only real big routine we kind of check in is like what I call the family week routine. So again, the Sunday, whatever day meetings you want to have it, Sunday is usually best because you can look at the week as a whole. If you're a co-parenting house, it's a good time to talk about when the kids are going where, who's picking people up, helping the kids to know what and who is taking care of them makes them feel secure. So talking about the transitions, if you have schedules that are pretty concrete, then the kids know. If you're a co-parenting house where schedules change, just being able to talk about that through the week can help everyone stay on board and know what's going on. And then if they change during the week, maybe you have an every other weekend routine, then you can kind of bring that back up and talk about, well, this weekend you're going to go with your other parent. So maybe you're just talking about the school week with them, but just staying on the same page with your kids so that they understand what's going on through the week. Again, making sure we know what sports, what activities, what things are going on through the week. It's also helpful for them to be able to make sure they're packed up for the week. And what I say for that is, if you have to come home and have to get changed and ready for baseball, for example, it's nice to know where all the baseball gear is, right? So where have we put everything? So we're not coming home in the door at 5. We have to be out the door at 5:30 or 5:40. And in that time, we're expected to eat dinner and get dressed for baseball, but we don't know where our cleats are. We don't know where our glove are. We don't have our pants. We're supposed to be wearing the shirt because we're playing tonight, and I don't know where my shirt is. And that can create crazy havoc in the household. So having a routine of what happens after we come home for practice with our gear and stuff. Where do we put it once it's washed and clean? Does it go in a specific place so that we know where things are? When we come home, where do we put our bat and glove? Do we leave it in the back of the car so it's already always there? Problem, if you co-parent or you co-ride, making sure your child remembers it, because it's, the experience may happen where the kids at practice, but the bat and glove are in the back of the car of the person who didn't bring them. So if you have a routine and what needs to be there, then they make sure that they have everything with them. If you have a bat bag, you can pack the bag and maybe you put the shirt and pants and cleats on top of the bat bag. So that night they come in the door, they're able to get changed and ready, and they're ready to go out the door with all their stuff. So those are kind of the family routines that we look at and being able to set things up. And then again, we talked about those looking at dinner plans and planning dinner according to maybe what we have going on those nights. So that's kind of a good snapshot of what routines look like. Usually this would be the time that we take questions. So if there's any questions anyone has, I'd be happy to answer them. Do we have any audience questions that I can answer? And I don't know that we can hear, so we may have to type them in the chat if we have any questions that I could particularly answer for you.
Yes, thank you,
Back to you.
Catherine. Thank you. I wanted to let everyone know that we will get this video up on the library's website very soon. It takes a couple of days to get it all processed. and then it will be available to share on Facebook or wherever you'd like with folks that you think it would be helpful to hear from. I certainly will be sharing with my parent friends. Also wanted to mention, we have you set up for September, correct, Catherine?
Yeah.
I have disciplining through a pandemic.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
hasn't been tough in my household at all.
Yeah.
No. Well, I'll be there too.
And we'll be talking about multi-ages with that, not, so all the way from our littles to our teens, we'll be talking about discipline.
Perfect. I am going to pop a survey into our chat box for this evening. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to put Catherine's contact information back in again. And I'm going to put the library contact information in again. Check out my copy and paste skills.
Yeah.
And if there aren't any more questions, we're going to let everybody go and enjoy this beautiful evening and see you again soon.